Oh, great. Right as I start filming, the AC turns on. Howdy, y'all. Rowan here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Hi, how are you? Happy New Year. I'm filming this on the 31st, and probably going to post it on later today, tonight, or later tonight or tomorrow morning. Not sure yet. But y'all should be seeing this right around New Year's Eve, New Year's of 2025. If you're seeing this farther into the future than that, oh my God, the magic of human creation. Hi, how are you? Today we're going to be doing a tarot tag, which hopefully you know by the title. We're going to do the hashtag end of year tarot tag as a VR to Chanel over at Chanel Days. And I did not participate in this one last year. This is my first end of year on YouTube. So did not have the opportunity to do it last year. So I'm doing her version this year, which has a couple of edits to the questions. I don't know what they are, as I did not do it last year. So, go check out her original videos down below. I'm going to link them. But let's go ahead and launch into my answers because I have several paragraphs to talk about some of these. I did not limit myself to how I responded to these questions. So we're going to start with number one, the deck that you used the most this year. So this is a tarot tag, but I am going to include a couple of oracles for answers just because they answered the question best. And the first one for that is the Wild Unknown Archetypes. I have the pocket edition specifically, but I did originally have the full size when I first fell in love with it. This deck, I technically... Look, because I did not do this last year, let me not limit myself. I don't actually care if these decks were obtained in this year or not. This is just how my practice was this year. And I don't know if in the future I would even bother to limit myself anyways. I don't know that I necessarily got this deck in this year. I would have to check my Amazon purchase history. I may have gotten it last year and I'm just not positive. But this deck is by Kim Kranz, who is the artist for the famous Wild Unknown Tarot. And I am sure that it is a very familiar face, to my audience, all of them, whether you've been a viewer of mine or not. But I do talk about this deck all the time. I am obsessed with it. I love this Oracle deck so much. It's got 78 cards. I love a large Oracle deck. It has suits, but they are not elementally based, which is a nice change of pace. It's really good. I use this all the time. I use this with basically all of my collage tarot decks. I use this is one of the only oracles I read with for other people. This deck answers a lot of questions for me and expands on a lot of things that tarot brings up, and it is easily the deck that I used the most this year. Probably selfishly a runner-up is one we're going to talk about later as well, but that is the mixed media, mixed metaphor, mixed media. I do that a lot. It's backwards on the card backs. That's how often I mess them up. But this is an oracle deck that I myself made, and I keep it in my purse, and it is also one of the only oracle decks that I will read with for other people, and I use it every single month in my monthly pull. I made it, you know, it fits my needs because I made it with my needs in mind. I do have a video on this deck. I will link it below. I do not want to sit here and belabor my own creation for too long. If you're interested in it, you can go watch that video, and in that video I link where you can buy it if you want to get it for yourself, but I made it for me. So those were my two most used decks this year, easily. Next up, we have a deck that I didn't use this year, and I have two answers for that. So I did use these decks, but I hardly used them. I don't have a single deck in my collection that I did not use at all in some way, shape, or form. Actually, that's a lie. Hold on. Okay, so what was 2 answers to this prompt just became 3 answers to this prompt. But we're going to talk about a lot of decks here because this is the first time I'm participating in this tag and I haven't made a video in a long time. And I have, but I've been kind of MIA for a while dealing with life stuff, making very little content, and I'm happy to be back. And so we're going to spend a lot of time hanging out today. Okay? Okay. The first answer to this prompt, the deck that I just went and grabbed, and the only deck in my collection that I did not use for a single legitimate reading. I did pull it out and play with it, like shuffling it, trying to get readings from it, but it never worked for me, and all I could do with it was practice and get to know it. And even then, it's time has not come for me. I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to keep this deck in my collection, but its time has not come for me yet, and that is the Wanderer's Tarot. I spent a lot of time hemming and hawing about this. Let's talk about it. I got this secondhand from Cassandra over at A Riffle in Time, her shop, A Riffle in Time, or their shop. This deck, I actually don't know their pronouns now that I think about it. This deck, I'm pretty sure she, her. Not sure. Let me not say pretty sure when I'm not sure. I think maybe she, her. But anyways, this deck is minimalist. It completely reimagines the tarot. It's glossy. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that right away. It completely reimagines the tarot in a way that is not logical to me. I really struggle with it, and I'll tell you some of the reasons why. It uses feathers instead of wands. Yes, it uses feathers instead of wands because there's still a knife suit. So okay, the knives are correlated with air and the feathers are correlated with fire. I really struggle with this. Some people probably don't, but I do. And it's a difficult thing for me because of that. And then what's more, it's got moons as cups, and then it's got stones as pentacles. Like, this deck just confuses me. And a lot of the imagery from the minor arcana is reflected in the major arcana in a way that I find confusing. Yeah, it's got stones and it's got moons. So, like, there's just so much weird overlap with the symbolism that's used. And I get it. It definitely makes sense to the creator, but it does not make sense to me. And so I really struggle with this deck. Aesthetically, I love it. I love the glossy cardstock. I love the silver edging. It's kind of big, so it's a little bit difficult for me to shuffle with my small to average hands. I would not say I've got tiny hands, but I do have relatively petite hands. Not itty bitty, close to average, but like average for my demographic, which is AFAB American, white. Like, if you're like me, you may have a difficult time with this deck. It takes a lot of hand strength to shuffle, and it makes my thumbs and my middle fingers ache. It sets off my carpal tunnel. But oh my God, it's so satisfying to shuffle. I love shuffling big cards. They've got a better whap effect, and even with the sharp gilding, this is sharp gilding, I just find it to be a very pleasant aesthetic tactic experience. Tactical? Tactile? But I do struggle with this deck. I struggle to have legitimate readings with it just because I get very confused about what I'm looking at. So I've only used this bad boy for trying to get to know it. I have never successfully used it. Next, a deck that I love that I did not use nearly enough because I'm just never in the mood to try to shuffle it is this bad boy. This is my Somnia Tarot. When I got this deck, I immediately knew that we were going to have a problem because the cardstock is super duper heavy. I have poorly chopped this deck up. So I did trim it. I did not do the best job in the world. It's a little bumpy, and between the bumpy texture of the trim job and the thick nature of the cardstock, even cutting it down smaller than the slight bulk that it was is not enough for it to be an easy shuffle. Just watch how chunky this bad boy goes. Well, that's a good shuffle for it too. I guess it is pretty even. It just doesn't feel good to shuffle like that. And I'm always bending the cards. It's not a riffle shuffler. It can be riffle shuffled. I do not find it to be a good experience to riffle shuffle, both because of the card stock and because of my modification. But I fucking love this deck. This deck is stunning. I do like pulling it out, but I use it when I'm setting out specifically and purposefully to do dream or shadow work, which happens accidentally more often than it happens purposefully. So I have to convince myself to go for this deck because I do find it very uncomfortable in many ways. I love it. I don't find it claustrophobic the way some people do, but it does really bring up feelings of shadow for me. Like it brings out bad feelings, and not in as intense a way as I imagine the Deviant Moon would, but in a very intense way nonetheless. And because of that, like it's one I have to hype myself up to use. And then between that and the shuffle problem, it's just not one that gets reached for nearly often enough. So that's one I want to use more of. Next, we're going to talk about a deck that I'm sure you all know that I dislike if you are a regular on my channel. It is a deck that I have talked about a lot when talking about decks I struggle with, and that is the Hush Tarot. I, for a while, was trying to use this as an oracle deck, but I never liked reaching for it when I would, and so I eventually gave up on that, and I shuffled it back into its full capacity because I had taken cards that didn't resonate with me out of it. My biggest gripe with this deck, the one thing that I can only fix by completely altering the structure of it, is the Lovers card. It's this one here. It does not match the rest of the deck at all. The rest of the deck is very nature-based, very birds and corpses kind of thing. But this one card is the only Hindi reference in the entire deck. And it's so, or at least the only one I know about. There may be like subtle stuff, but there's no depictions of Hindi gods anywhere else in this fucking deck. And it annoys the shit out of me. I don't like that card. I think that's a terrible Lovers card, though a beautiful piece of art for this deck. I think it is a terrible Lovers card for this deck. If things were different, if there were more depictions of mythology rather than things from Jeremy Hush's own mind, like we get harpies, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't land for me because this deck does not in any other way go that route. A lot of the imagery here doesn't make sense for what it's trying to portray, in my opinion. It really does go its own way, and I didn't like it when I got it. I love the artwork, I still do, and I'm going to try to give this deck a second chance as a tarot deck. Now that I know more about tarot and am more confident in my ability to read, and I feel like I've got a broader understanding of the meanings of the cards that are not so dependent upon exclusively Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork, I do have hope for my relationship with that deck. It's going to take some work. Next up, we have the most recent addition to your collection. With Christmas having just come and gone, I have several that I want to talk about today. So we're going to try to go through them quickly. Okay? Okay. The first ones are a set, and so I'm going to talk about them as a set. And that is the Usi or Yusi Tarot and Oracle collection. This bad boy was a early Christmas gift from a lovely friend of mine, and here we go. It is fucking stunning. Let me just say that. This Materia Prima deck, I'm not even going to take this out to show you because I'm so afraid of getting it out of the order that it came in. This is a collector's item for me, and I doubt that I will use it anytime soon for actual divination purposes. Not only because it's not an intuitive deck for me, but because I just want to preserve the order of the cards. So badly. However, I do use the Super Oracle. I have gotten to know, I'm starting to get to know it specifically for the purposes of using it as an oracle. I have shuffled this deck. I have showed it off to friends. I mean, I've shown the Materia Prima off to friends too, but I don't want to open it right now, especially because this video is already so long. But this deck is very heady. It deals a lot with like, not necessarily esoteric things. I mean, those too, but that's not the word that I'm looking for. But it deals with a lot of intangible concepts. And I don't know that it is an oracle for everyday use, but I love it and I want to use it. Not necessarily for everyday questions, but like with spiritual check-ins and shadow work and things like that. I think I'll get use out of this bad boy. And then we have the actual Pagan Otherworlds Tarot, which is sitting her. This is one that I'm sure everyone knows well. This one had its heyday on YouTube already. That was before my time. But I'm going to show it off anyways, because I've got another deck I'm going to talk about later that I want to discuss a phenomenon that's going on with me. And that is that lately I have really enjoyed decks that are specifically set in the like British Isles during the pre-Christian era. What I mean to say is I love decks right now that are pagan inspired. This one obviously is the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot, really scratches that itch for me. It is a pip deck, as everyone knows, but it's a pips with feeling kind of deck. The scenes that are presented are meant to evoke the meanings of the cards, but there are no people, so it is scenic pips, I think is the best way to describe it, because it's pips with a scene behind it. Yeah, there we go. It's scenic pip. In that it's scenic the way paintings are scenic. That's what scenic means. I'm so annoying. Not just in the way that paintings are scenic, but in the way that locations are scenic. There we go. So yeah, love it. Beautiful. Have not read with it nearly enough because it is relatively new to my collection and it came in at the same time as the other Usi decks. And so I've kind of been like slowly getting to know them rather than jumping in head first. Love this devil card. Yeah, Pagan Otherworlds is beautiful. It's linen finish. It's a little bit big, but it's still easy to shuffle because of the linen finish. And I'm excited to work with it more in the new year. This kind of feels like a more serious version of the Wildwood Tarot, which is also one of my favorites. The Wildwood I like in a more storybook way. This one I would probably straight up use in ritual and happily feel like it fits without imposing a childish perspective in the same way that the Wildwood does feel a little bedtime story for kid, kind of, even with its like adult perspective on what that would be. Next question. Oh, wait, no, we're still talking about most recent editions. So those were an early Christmas present. This is an early Christmas present. So I have this year purchased the tin version of the Morgan Greer, and I've been using that in my purse. And I'm obsessed with it. I resisted for a long time getting this deck. I just kind of convinced myself that I didn't need another Rider-Waite-Smith knockoff and that it would not really benefit me. But I fucking love it. The lack of borders, the bright colors, the close-up perspectives of the cards, the heavy line work, the 70s vibe, the rounded corners, even the backs. I fucking love this deck. This Knight of Swords might be my favorite Knight of Swords card ever. I am obsessed with the blood lust look in our Knight of Swords eyes, which could also be interpreted as a reflection of the fire burning in the keep or the tower or or whatever this is over here. The blood smeared on his blade. It's not fresh. It has been half-assedly wiped off kind of energy. I really like the way this card says that the Knight of Swords is going to be a bit savage in the act of doing what they feel that they have to do, no matter how misdirected that may be. Love this card, love this card, love this card. And I loved the little version of the deck and never thought that I would need a big version of it, but I was oot and a boot with a person, a friend of mine who means a lot to me, and I've been spending a lot of time with friends lately. We were at one of my favorite magic shops down in Galveston, and shout out to the Witchery Tarot, love you. And this deck, the Witchery Tarot, the Witchery occult shop, mysticism shop, whatever you want to call it. This deck is a used copy of the Morgan Greer that I managed to grab for like $10. Well, rather it was gifted to me by this friend. I'm so happy. I don't know, I cannot tell when this specific copy of the deck was printed because it does not have the little white book with it. I don't know if that was never part of this edition of the deck or if it has been lost to the hands of time. Not the sands, the hands. But this could be a very vintage deck. I'm not certain. This could also just be from the 90s. But either way, it is an older copy of this deck, and that does make me happy. It does have a barcode on the back, which is why I'm thinking like maybe 90s. It does not include the 1993, I believe, is one of the alternative print dates, like when they re-upped the copyright, when they renewed the copyright for this deck. It had my small copy of it has the years printed on the back, and so like this copy must have existed between when it was originally printed in 79 and when the licensing was renewed in, I believe, 1993. So this deck was somewhere in there, which is a very broad amount of time. I could try to find out, but I don't know how I would without the little white book. But very happy with this. Next, the Golden Universal Tarot, which was a gift from the same friend who got me this one, was also an early Christmas gift. And this I have already edged. I edged it black because the backs are black and the fronts have a black border. This one is one that I will probably be pulling out in December of next year as well. I don't know how much I'm going to use it in the summer because this very much so is a Winter's Nights kind of deck for me. I may pull it out some here in January, but this is a November, December deck just because of the darkness of it. However, I may find myself reaching, you can see the gilding, it's so pretty. I may find myself reaching for it as a middle of the night deck because it's definitely one that benefits from candlelight with all of the gilding on it. It's marvelous under candles, as is another deck that I'm going to talk about in this video. So this is the Golden Universal Tarot. It's a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. The backs are friggin' stunning, and it was a Christmas gift, and I'm very happy to work with it, to have it in my collection, and this is definitely one I would pull out for other people as well. So, very pretty. And finally, a deck that I got myself for Christmas. This has already been heavily modified. I just got it last night for me, from me to me. And this is the Celtic Tarot, I believe. Let me go get the box. Hold on. Silly me, the Celtic Tarot. No, this is the Druidcraft Tarot. And the guidebook is by Philip and Stephanie Cargom, and it's illustrated by Will Worthington, who also did the art for the Greenwood Tarot. Yes, the Greenwood Tarot, but the Wildwood is the one that I have. The Greenwood is out of print, and it is very difficult to get a hold of, and it is an answer for another one of these prompts, as well as, again, more answers. So, the Druidcraft Tarot, this is the guidebook. Haven't read it yet, just got it last night. will be doing, I'm currently in one round of tarot study, so I'm not going to get to this guidebook until maybe March of next year. Excuse me, except for when I'm reading with the book, or with the deck, I may pull it out. I have already trimmed and edged this deck. As soon as I got it, I was like, oh no, this bad boy's getting a trim. The cards came face up and there was this big white border all around them. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to shuffle that. And sure enough, when I took it out of the box, my hands could barely fit around it. And between the thick, glossy cardstock and just the sheer size of it, I was like, there's no way this is happening. So I trimmed it, and now I can get about as good of a better shuffle than the Somnia, but not by much. It is not the most perfect trim job. The most perfect trim job I've ever done was on my Bianco Nero, and it was the first trim job I ever did. The second best trim job I ever did was on the Tantric Dakini Oracle, and that one doesn't count because that cardstock is literally the kind of cardstock that you would buy at the hobby store texture. It is so paper thin. The shuffle is much better on this. This is my favorite color to gild my decks in, or to edge my decks in, I should say, not gild, because it is that soft, dirty gold, almost bronzy color. It matches a lot of accents on cards, and it just looks neutral. It's not a overwhelming commitment visually, but I couldn't even, before I trimmed it, I could not even overhand it. That's how big it was. Like, if I wanted to shuffle it, I would have had to have corner shuffled it roughly, because you can't, it wasn't quite wide enough that you could properly bend it to corner shuffle it. And I would have had to have shuffled it like this, which is my least favorite way to shuffle decks. I feel like it's slow as hell, and it does not get the deck properly shuffled fast, like with any kind of quickness. Like, in order to fully shuffle a deck like that, you would have to spend, I don't know, like 40 minutes doing that. That's way too much work. You'll notice I have not corner rounded it. That is a choice. I am choosing not to corner round it because I'm going to try it out with the full frame visible. If it does not work for me, I will then corner round it, but I'm going to leave it sharp for now. This is just, I love Will Worthington's art style. Can you see it? Is it glaring? I love Will Worthington's art so much. I love the way I feel like I am in a fantasy world when I look at his stuff. And for that reason, even though I did not need this deck in any way, shape, or form, Barnes & Noble had it, and so I got it. I also got a logic puzzle book, an enormous logic puzzle book that I'm very excited to dive into. Nobody makes logic puzzle books anymore. I miss those. You know, the ones with the grid system, and you put dots and X's in them to indicate whether somebody has been associated. Anyway, this deck rules. Logic puzzles rule. I'm excited to work with it. I love the artwork. I love my modification to it, even though it's a little bit uneven. It's not nearly as uneven as the Somnia. It's a thinner cardstock than the Somnia. It's more shuffleable. So, excited to work with this bad boy. But like I said, I'm not going to, it doesn't even have a bag yet, which is why it's just kind of like floating around like this. So I have to make a bag for it as soon as possible. That's all of my recent acquisitions. So number 4, a deck that isn't your usual style. For this one, I do only have one answer. Shocker, I know. This is going to be, and this is a secondhand deck that was gifted to me by a friend, the Alana Fairchild Roomy Oracle. This is not the sort of thing I normally would get for myself, and I happily took it from her when she offered it, but I never would have bought this. Alana Fairchild's perspective on it's just not mine. Let me just say that her perspective on, like, her spiritual relationship with the universe is similar, but just different enough from mine that it's like, I can't quite jive with you, man. It's like a Protestant versus a Catholic. Like, yeah, I get it, but no, we're not the same. And for that reason, it's not the sort of thing I normally would pick up for myself. but I'm super excited to have it in my collection because I do think that Alana Fairchild is excellent at presenting her personal gnosis in a way that benefits someone in their own spiritual practice. And for that, I'm very happy to have this. The artwork is not intuitive, but it is fucking beautiful. I've used this for a couple of months now, which means I've only used it a couple of times because I only use it once a month for my monthly card pulls, and I sit with that card and I pull back out the guidebook should I need to, and I've got it on my little card holder mantle place thing in front of my TV. It's not a mantle, I don't have a fireplace, but I like to think of it as a mantle because that's how it functions. But this is the Rumi Oracle. Not a lot of experience with it, but what little I have, I've really enjoyed. And I'm going to set that aside and we're going to move on because very few of these questions have short answers. A favorite deck pairing. That's going to be a deck I've already talked about. My personal deck, Mixed Metaphor, Mixed Media, and the Aquamarine Tarot. And I do have to admit, this is my favorite pairing for selfish reasons. I love an excuse to use my own deck. The Aquamarine Tarot is also one that I adore. This is an indie deck that I got from a Riffle and Time shop, and it's a collage deck that really speaks to the energy of each card in a way that most of my collage decks really struggle to do, and I'm thinking specifically of the Couture Tarot, which tries to capture an aesthetic essence but fails more often than not. This one I feel like gets the feeling of a card across so well. The aces are all flawless. This death card, 10 of 10. The one that comes to mind for me the most in this deck, as that's just a spot on fucking vibe, the Hanged Man. This is one of my favorite Hanged Man cards. Let me see if I can find her. Oh, the Queen of Swords is great. It's the Six of Pentacles. I just think it is the texture, the color, the way it just hits the energy of the Six of Pentacles, or I'm sorry, Six of Cups, not Pentacles, the Six of Cups. It's a perfect nostalgia card, and it really speaks to me and my experience growing up in the early aughts. Like, I love it. I love it a lot. It's that mix of 2000s and like it covers a nostalgia that ranges from like 2000. Oh, I'm supposed to show these together. From like 2000 or 1998, 99ish to 2012 kind of energy. And so I vibe with it. And I think these two decks, backs included, go well together. I enjoy reading with them together. I like an excuse to pull out my deck, and I think that the Aquamarine matches with very little in my collection, so I use it a lot with the archetypes and with my personal deck. Yeah, this has been the pairing that has made me the happiest. This is not the pairing that I've used the most necessarily, but it has made me the happiest. Alrighty. I don't have another pairing to talk about. This is another one with only one answer, even though the answer itself technically asks for two decks. Aquamarine Tarot and the Mixed Metaphor Mixed Media, which I made and which can be printed on makeplayingcards.com. I'm working on a guidebook for it. That's one of my goals, is to get that completed this upcoming year. The only catch with that... Why is this being weird? There we go, maybe. One of my cards is bent, that's why. Okay. The only catch with working on the guidebook this year is that I also want to release versions of this deck that don't have the gilding, so that it can be obtained for a much more reasonable price. And then I want to get versions out that don't have the borders, or alternatively, and I think this one's more likely to happen, I want to get a version of this deck out that is 3x5 size with the black borders. Make Playing Cards automatically has an option for playing cards at the playing card size with a black border around them. I would have to manually add the border in if I did it myself, which is not difficult, but it does take a lot of time to figure out what program, like how I want to do that, right? And it's going to take time, and that's it. I just haven't put the time into doing that yet. So I want to get the guidebook out, and I want to get other versions of the deck out so that you can buy it at different price points, at different qualities, so that it can be enjoyed by more than just myself. I have my perfect purse version. I want y'all to be able to choose what version works best for you, so that more people will enjoy my creation. I also want to buy a lot of it at some point. I don't know if that'll happen this year or next year, but I want to buy maybe like 250 copies of the deck so that I can give it out to people, friends, family. Some of them will pay me for it. They've already told me, but I want copies of it to disperse in the real world. So that's another goal that I have for this upcoming year. Or for the next 2 years. I think I can get that done on a 2-year time span. I don't know if it's going to happen this year because I've got some other financial things that I have to meet that are like bigger priority. Anyway, favorite deck mod, bag, or accessory bought or made. And we're going to talk about Will Worthington again, is my deck bag that I made for the Wildwood Tarot. This deck I have not modified in any way, shape, or form. It's got very similar backs to the Pagan Otherworlds. Nope. Druidcraft. It's got similar backs to the Druidcraft Tarot, except with big old tree of life instead of tiny little symbol. The Druidcraft also originally had like this piping around the edge with little flourishes in the corner. This deck is not the goal. This bag is the goal. We're talking about the bag. This is just the nicest bag that I had made at this point. It's still a little crooked on the cut at the top. That's fine. I hand stitched it. I do not use a machine at this time. I have to reteach myself how to use my sewing machine, which is something I want to tackle in the new year as well. But I hand stitched this entire thing and it turned out really good. I am not good at hand stitching. I'm getting better, but I am not good at it. My favorite part, I think, is just the fabric itself. I love the way these two go together. Like the artwork that is in this deck matches the energy of the bag for me really well. But that, like the fabric itself is thick, it's plush. I've lined it so there's plenty of it. And then the ribbon that I used for this deck is like it's a fabric ribbon. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's a fabric ribbon and it's really sturdy and it really feels secure when you cinch it. A lot of my bags have very small cording running through them and you have to kind of tie it off to get it to stay in place because it swims in the seam that I make for it. But because this is a fabric ribbon, it creates a whole lot of friction and it keeps the bag closed. So this has been my favorite hobby creation related to tarot has been this bag. A runner-up that I'm not going to go get would probably be my modding of the Tantric Dakini Oracle, just because I think that Oracle looks so much better without a border. Next up, favorite deck backs. This one I limited myself to one answer with, only because I'm going to be... Well, okay. I currently have the deck in the moon box prepping. It's sitting with some crystals and charging for, I don't think charging is necessarily the word for it. It's like undergoing a gentle reset for the new year. But that is the Visconti Tarots from Lo Scarabeo. Boop, 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 boop. Come on. Shimmy, shimmy. This is a Gilded Marseille deck that I have edged in black. And I'm prepping it for my New Year's reading. I'm going to use this for, this is what the card faces look like. I'm going to use this, I guess it's not really a Marseille tarot. It's a Visconti tarot. Yeah, it's a Visconti tarot, not a Marseille tarot, excuse me. But I'm going to be using this deck for my year ahead reading because it has very little personal, interpretation of the pips, and I like that about it. And it glitters under candlelight, and I like that about it. And it's got the most beautiful fucking backs, and I like that about it. Can you see? Yes. Oh, num 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 num. Stunning. So that is the answer for a prompt that will come up in the future, but it is also the most beautiful card backs. My runner-up for that would probably be the Tarot de Carlotides, which I always say is titties, and I'm not going to do that again because, quite frankly, it's a little bit rude. Not to say titties, but to mispronounce a word just because it's in a language that's not mine. So I'm just going to lean into the I can't pronounce this and not say the inappropriate word, and instead just say it Carlotides. God, why am I so defensive over that? Grow up. This box rules. Okay, we're moving on. Next question is deck with a great theme. I've got two to talk on with this one. The first is a tarot deck with a great theme, and I had to mention it somewhere, the Zeke's Arcana Tarot. It is one of my personal favorite tarot decks. I do wish that the cardstock were better so that I felt safe riffle shuffling it, but because of the embossing on the back that has this gorgeous foiling on it, it folds right along this center line if you riffle shuffle it. I've said that before, and I'll say it again, because if you own this deck, I want you to be able to preserve it because it is now technically out of print. You can still get it on the Tarot Stack website and certain other distributors, but it is technically out of print. And I fucking love it. It's so beautiful. It's a deck that is... The more and more I learn about tarot in a bunch of different ways, the more it has a couple of extra cards in it. The more I can appreciate where it sticks to and strays from. I understand it better because I know tarot better, and I know tarot better because I understand this deck better. And I love its weird alien sci-fi fantasy vibe. I love it so much. It is a pips with feeling kind of deck. The cup suit gets more attention than any other suit. The wand suit gets the least attention of all. Here's the other. And it's one of my favorite decks. I just don't use it a whole lot because I have already ruined it quite a bit. And as I said, this deck is out of print, and I've already bought 2 copies of it, and I don't want to have to buy a third. So I don't use it a whole lot, but it is easily one of my favorite tarot decks, and it has been since before I bought it. And then the next deck I want to talk about is actually a playing card deck that will be mentioned again in another answer. But this is the Fantasy Playing Cards by William Stout from Art of Play Publishing. And I got this through the shop app on the Art of Play storefront. This deck has these gorgeous black and white fantasy dragon backs. It is linen finished. And it comes with, 2 extra cards, and every single card in this deck is a different illustration from William Stout, and every single one of them is not reversible. I have already accidentally messed up which ones are, some of them are reversible in that they could hypothetically be viewed either way, but they are never exactly same top to bottom. Here on this King of Wands, or King of Clubs, excuse me, you can see there's a different expression. One is fearful, one is resigned. And that differing expression makes all the fucking difference. So yeah, this deck is definitely going to get used as an oracle by me, not as a traditional playing card deck, but as an oracle where the meaning corresponds both to the suits, the numerological value, and the images thereon, rather than just being a pip deck. And I think it's got a great theme. The fantasy theme runs through and through, and I fucking love it. I love it to death. So that is the William Stout Fantasy Playing cards. Okay. Our next prompt I have 2 answers to, and that is a deck that you are in love with. And the 2 decks that I want to talk about for this one are both decks that I used for the Drop 'em 78 challenge. I have not finished the challenge yet, even though it is the end of the year. Life happened and I was not able to keep up with it on a daily basis, so it's kind of just dissolved into a tarot practice, or a tarot study, I should say. And I have already done only that much of it, so I've gotten through... Excuse me, I have modified this deck. This is the Enchanted Tarot and the Tabula Mundi Tarot. Spoilers. I have already modified this deck. I've had it, I've had it for a minute, but I edged it in colors that correlate to the front of the card for a lovely little shuffling experience. And it's in order, so is my copy of the Tabula Mundi. Right now I'm on the 7 of Hearts, or 7 of Cups, in my study, and this one is on 8 of Cups for a reason that we'll get to. Say it with me in another question. Okay, so I love these decks so much that these are the ones I picked for the Drop 'em 78. Let me just put it that way. The Enchanted Tarot is also known as the Zerner Farber Tarot, and I first had it as that deck. Why am I doing it that way? The Zerner Farber Tarot is a little pocket-sized version of this, and I did not realize how much detail of the art I was missing until I got this big boy copy. Is it blurry? I hope it's not blurry. But I love Amy Zerner's artwork so much. Monty Farber is pretty good at guidebooks too. I have thoroughly enjoyed both of the guidebooks that I have had for both versions of this deck. One of my local occult shops currently has a vintage copy of this deck for $150. Sorry. Camera cut me off because my phone ran out of storage and I had to delete my last video out of the trash so that it would be able to continue on. So I've only got about an hour's worth of filming left, so let me not daddle too long. Dwaddle too long? Is that the word? Anyway, this deck, Enchanted Tarot, whatever I was saying about it, love the guidebook for the Enchanted Tarot, love the guidebook for the Zerner Farber. They are different, so I view it as worth owning 2 copies of the same deck. You may not. You may have one that you prefer. Have edged it. I think I already said that. And using it for the Drop 'em 78 challenge, which has just become a standard tarot study for me, along with the Tabula Mundi, which is my calibrating deck, which I thought I was not going to use, but I ended up using it consistently throughout the challenge. I'm currently on the 8 of Cups, and the 7 of Cups is elsewhere. Or at least for the Tabula Mundi. But the Tabula Mundi I love because I love M.M. Maline's art. I also love Amy Zerner's art and Monty Farber's guidebooks. I do have the guidebook for this deck that comes separately, and it's also good, but it's very heady, and it's the sort of thing that you read after you have thoroughly read several other more traditionally written tarot guidebooks, and you're ready to get into the meatier, more Golden Dawn associations. It's not Golden Dawn associations, it is Crowley's associations, but it's very close to the Golden Dawn correspondences. And those are 2 decks that I fell in love with this year, so much so that I had to use them for a dedicated study. When I got them, they had my heart, each of them immediately, and I have only grown to love them more and more as Rider dies as time has gone on. Our next question is a deck that you wish existed, or an out-of-print deck that you want. We're going to answer both of these. I already sort of have, at least for one of them. An out-of-print deck that I want is the Greenwood Tarot with art by Will Worthington and guidebook by someone whose name I believe is Sasha. I don't remember 100%. This person does not want to be associated with the deck anymore from what I can tell anyways, so it's complicated, and that's why it's out of print, and it goes for ridiculous amounts of money, and as I was cut off from saying earlier, I just can't afford to spend more than $100 on a tarot deck right now, so there's no way I'm going to get my hands on a copy of it at best for many, many years to come. And that's being very generous, because it's not one that goes on sale a whole lot, because it is a collector's item at this point. But I'm fingers crossed someday I'm able to get my hands on one, but I don't have high expectations. And then a deck that does not exist that I wish existed with my whole chest. You can't see it, but I'm tapping my chest, is a Gilmore Girls deck. Give me a Gilmore Girls deck. Inside Editions, come on. Whatever company it was that made the Game of Thrones deck, get on it. Was that Inside Editions? I don't think so. But yeah, please, somebody give me a Gilmore Girls deck. I want it to have as much love and care as those two did. Please, please, please. Or the not any Inside Editions deck. Please don't give me a lazy Pip deck. I want one that has time, care, and energy put into it. I want one from somebody who understands both tarot and the TV show Gilmore Girls. I want it to be good. But quite frankly, if a lazy Pip deck version of a Gilmore Girls deck came out from Inside Editions, I would probably buy it because I'm stupid. And that's what I want. Universe, hear me. Then our next prompt, which card sums up this year as a whole, or just a card that you like? And I've got a tarot card and an oracle card here. We're going to talk about the oracle card first. This is the card that I pulled as the motif for the year when I did my year ahead reading back last January. And this is the heart card from the Archetypes Oracle. I've mentioned before, I am going through a very complicated time in my life right now. I'm in a divorce-ish. It's complicated. I don't want to talk about it. But the long and short of it is finding out what matters to me and what matters to my life and what gets my heart pounding and what motivates me and what I want to work towards and what happiness looks like for me has definitely been the theme of the year. And for that reason, the Seven of Cups is the tarot card that I have selected to represent this year. The Seven of Cups just is the energy. Opportunities that are like choices that are so overwhelming and feel fanciful and trying to figure out which ones are good for you and which ones aren't. So those are my cards of the year. And then a tarot practice reflection. I love to study. I love to study tarot, and studying tarot has taught me a couple of different things. I want to talk about first that I love to study. I want to go back to school. I want to go to school for art. I want to study art. I want to learn about all the ways in which artists use shape, form, movement, color, texture to communicate their intention. I want to understand this language better. I want to be able to hold this conversation with the rest of the world. I want to go to school for art. That is something that studying tarot has taught me that is about my life. Something that studying tarot has taught me that about tarot is that, let's see, what exactly do I want to say and how do I say it? Hold on, give me a second to group. Okay. Studying tarot has shown me not only the language of art in a way that previously wasn't really cemented in, like media literacy. I'm talking about media literacy here. It opened up my mind to media literacy in a way that had not happened since very specific conversations about film with my sort of husband. And tarot has allowed me to have that conversation with the artist and with myself rather than with a third party. And it has been an absolutely beautiful experience. And it has taught me that media literacy, art, and tarot are all languages. And by dedicating myself to learning these languages, I genuinely believe that I am helping to increase neuroplasticity that will benefit my brain long term. Never mind divination, never mind self-reflection. Tarot is good for me because it is helping me to learn to make connections that previously were not there. And I think that if we expended effort and money studying this in a scientific context, we would find that tarot is probably almost as good for the brain as learning another language such as ASL or BSL or British Sign Language I don't think it's as good for the brain of an English person as learning Mandarin Chinese is by any stretch of the imagination. I think that the differences in how those two languages work are so vast that using them, like making that learning leap is probably like just about the best thing you can do for your brain. But I think learning tarot might maybe be as good for the brain as learning a new instrument. I think learning tarot might maybe be as good for the brain as learning. I mean, let me give credit to ASL and BSL. They use different grammatical structures than English does, and they do think about the world in a different way. So let me not downplay them the way I so rudely just did. Anyway, I think it's that good. I think it's that good for you. And so with that, we're going to lead into the next question, which is to pull a card for the new year, which I'm not going to do on camera. I do a new year reading, and I might talk over it once I've done it, but the ritual itself will not be happening on camera. Or a deck that you want to use next year. And I'm going to kind of tweak this, and I'm going to have a lot to say about it. So we're going to be on this question for a while, which is fine because it's the last question. And then you're free to leave. But I would like to learn more divination systems, not because I do that much divination, because quite frankly, like when I sit down with the tarot, most of the time, the biggest struggle I have with the cards is I've got nothing to ask. I just want to read tarot for the sake of it. And so, asking questions has never really been my goal with divination, but knowing what I now, or believing what I now believe, it stands to reason that I should pursue learning other divination systems because they are a language just as much as art is a language, like paintings and sculpture, classical art, even dance. Dance is its own fucking language. But I would like to learn, I would like to do a proper deep dive on Marseille Tarot. I have a book already set aside for that. I believe it's the Alejandro Jodorowsky one. I've already read the Gay Marseille's guidebook. I did not find it to be nearly as, it was good. It was good. It was good. It's not a study guide. So I'm going to read Jodorowsky's book just for the foundations. I understand a lot of the issues with Jodorowsky, so I will keep those in mind as I read. But I want to learn more Marseille, and for that I will be pulling out the Visconti tarots, the Gay Marseille, and Johanna House? Johanna House? I think I'm getting her name wrong. What the fuck? Anyway, that one, the 7th edition that I've got, I'm not going to get up and go get another tarot deck. I've been up and down this whole video. We're just going to plow through. But I want to use more Visconti and specifically Marseille style tarot decks. So I'm going to do a study on that. So that's a whole category of answer. Another category of answer is that I'm currently in the process of learning Lenormand. So I want to use the old style Lenormand deck, which is one of only 2 Lenormand decks that I own. Why did I open this one from the bottom? There's not a seal on it. The other one is the Memento Mori, which I use as a standard oracle with a Lenormand twist rather than reading as an oracle or as a Lenormand fully. I do not take out the 36 cards and use just those. But I do use this one for Lenormand study because it's really straightforward. It's got the playing card associations in the upper corner. I like the way the art looks. I'm not wild about the back having text on it, but I like the rest of the back. I wanted the old style tarot, and I convinced myself not to get it by getting the old style Lenormand instead. And so this is a deck that I want to use specifically for my Lenormand study. I've got 2 books for it and Lisa Pepez's videos that she's making. I'm watching along with the series as it's published, but I'm also definitely going to be gosh darn it. I'm definitely going to be rewatching once they're all out and taking notes on them in a single session probably, or maybe a couple of sessions. Old style Lenormand, another classification of deck that I want to use. And then finally, I also want to do a playing card study. I want to be able to read the William Stout fantasy playing cards as an Oracle deck, but I've got so many other, this one I'll probably use as an Oracle deck too. This one I got off of Amazon. I showed it to one of my friends and they were like, are you sure that's not AI? And so now I'm worried that it might be AI art, but there's only really one card in the deck that makes either of us think that. I could be wrong. I could be right. I have no idea. I need to do more research, but I did get this on Amazon, and it's a 60s futurism, neo-futurism, 60s neo-futurism, I think, is what this art style is called. It's pulp art. It reminds me of The Forbidden Planet and Mystery Science Theater 3000, specifically the old Mystery Science Theater 3000. The new stuff just doesn't have the same energy quite, but the... that's a deck I want to use as an Oracle deck probably, but in order to in my opinion, correctly use these as Oracle decks, I need to first get more comfortable reading playing cards with less tarot association and more elemental and numerological associations, which means I'm also doing a numerology deep dive this next year as my plan. It's not a goal of the year, it's a plan, so if life happens, I'm not going to be too fussed with myself. But I've got the Usi pagan playing cards here. These were a gift, and you know, they're just standard playing cards, but with the pagan art on these fucking great, with the pagan art on the not majors, playing cards don't have majors, what's the court cards, there we go, and then standard pips for the numbered cards, and then the aces get a little bit of artwork too. So I want to be able to use this deck in a divinatory fashion that is less linked to tarot, although very obviously this particular deck is quite tarot linked. It even has pentacles on the diamond suit. But then I have the Star Trek tarot, which I literally got last night. It is a deck I've been eyeing for a long time, but I found this in person at Target. I've been looking at it at either Art of Play or rareplayingcards.com. I can't remember which, but I've had my eye on it there. I believe it's also sometimes available on Amazon, but this is and it's a pip deck, and it's got Star Trek characters as the court cards in a way that makes a lot of sense, and then little doodles for the aces. I want to use this deck as a divinatory tool, and for that I have to know how to read playing cards in a way that I don't have to. I want to know how to read playing cards in a more traditional way rather than a tarot-derived way. So that is my final study that I want to do in the new year. And with that, we have finally finished this incredibly long fucking video. Thank you to Chanel over at Chanel Days for making the tag, and thank you to everyone who powered through for that incredibly overworked explanation of my answers to each and every one of those questions. Thank you for hanging out with me, and thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing, because I know that you did all of those things, right? Yeah, especially commenting. I love y'all's comments. I don't always get to them right away because I get overwhelmed by feelings, but I do thrive on conversations about tarot. It is my special interest. It is the thing that my brain wants to chew on the most. So anytime people give to conversations thereabouts makes me so happy. And I would also like to say thank you for listening to me say thank you so much. One of my lovely friends pointed out to me how often I thank them for simple things like spending time with me. And I'm like, I'm Southern. I was raised to say thank you a lot. So thanks again. I love you. Bye. Mwah.